the possibility of creating anything is endless now. Then I realized that there's so much more than actually looking out for perfection. That concept itself only was so amazing that we used to make an ad a day.
While you have solved big business problems throughout your career, you've worked in Saatchi & Saatchi, Channel you talked about, JWT, and then on your own solving multiple businesses and brands, you've launched big brands in India. At the same time, you also illustrate. At the same time, you also talk about complex thought with innocence.
I'll never retire. I can never retire. If I retire, I'll die. Or I'll die and then retire.
Hi Debu.
Hi.
We are in Mumbai. The year is 2024. Can I request you to close your eyes for me? Go back to your childhood, the year of your choice. Tell us the memory comes of when you doodled and enjoyed for the first time.
That was way back when I was a little kid. And I used to, because the paper was flat, everything for me was flat. So perspective didn't exist. So everybody, you'd be like splattered on the page. And my first teacher was my dad, because he was an engineer, he is an engineer. And he explained to me how things, when you see them in perspective, how that would work. So I had no idea what he was saying. So the only thing I understood was if somebody is standing behind a fence, then he has to be behind the fence, not above the fence. So that began my journey of understanding how to put things in a frame. And then I used to just doodle all the time. So
from then to today, if you trace back your journey, how would you describe it?
I think I'm blessed. It's magical because I was born into it. Though I have gone through training for art, but I already had it before I went into college. And the good thing is that, how do I put it? It's something that gave me a way out of any situation. So for me, drawing something is meditative for me. And it helps me stay sane in even the most darkest of times. So it has always been with me. And earlier I used to keep a diary next to my bed with a pen. And suddenly if I wake up in the night or early in the morning, if I had something which I had dreamt of, I used to put it down. And so that thing, this diary carrying with me in my pocket or in my bag has been there forever. And I used to keep doing things, filling my books up with random stuff. It didn't make sense. But it is there, and that was an outlet for me to... In our times when we were growing up, we didn't have mental health as a term. We didn't even know what was mental health. We didn't even know what was anxiety or what like issues that you had. If you had an issue, you always had issues, because I used to get thrashed at home or get bullied outside or whatever. But you'd handle it because there was no other way. The only way was to find your way through the maze of life. And for me, drawing was a very easy option to. Music was to listen to and calm down, and second was drawing was just to be an outlet for anything that I'd do. And I used to be able to copy things exactly the way I saw it. But overall, I think art has actually helped keep me sane through all that's happened.
What you said is such a powerful and hopeful statement. You navigate through the maze of life because you have to do it.
Yeah.
Precisely to do that, to help people find their way ahead in whatever field they are, whether artists or not. Voice of Artists wants to encourage people to find that voice within so that they navigate the maze of life. So welcome to Voice of Artists, Debu. How are you feeling?
I really liked the concept when you first told me about it, and we had a few meetings, and I had sort of told you guys about the hurdles that you'd have. But I'm so happy that everything is sort of finding its path. It's like water, and it's turned out into something really nice, and that's a good thing that's happened. And I'm so glad that you guys actually began doing that and believed in yourself, and for whatever people would have said to you, you still stuck to your guns. And that's one thing I think people need more than being skilled, being trained, being having studied, to hold on to your conviction, to whatever you believe is right.
Holding on to conviction and being practical, are these two different things, opposite things?
It depends on the situation, because sometimes it may be absolutely conflicting, or sometimes it's just the natural thing that it's a progression of what life is. So depending on what, so like I can go up to the 16th floor and say I am going to jump and start flapping my wings and fly away. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So that's stupidity. But when you believe that you can create something and make something of value which will help people, the the belief that it will help people, because you've put the right energy into it and said that, okay, let me do it, at least let me begin. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but let me start. If you don't start, then how do you know whether you will succeed or not?
So, you are one of the few lucky ones who was able to get into a career which was also creative. You have been creative strategist, you have done so many things in your profile, making your passion your profession. What does it mean to be a creative strategist? Who is a creative strategist?
I didn't start off being a creative strategist. Actually, this is by default. It's also to do with, I've been extremely lucky because I had bosses who were just amazing people who just make me do things outside my comfort zone. And when I was a kid, I used to say, what is wrong with this guy? And then we'd all be bitching each other's bosses out, and I'd say, I'm come here to do this, and why is he asking me to do that? And but now I realize that they had seen maybe something in me which they thought that I should do. And I'm so glad that all my bosses actually pushed me into, and they actually kicked me off the board so that I could fall into the water and start swimming. And they didn't hold my hand and explain the things to me. They just dumped me in the deep end of the ocean. And I sort of navigated, and when I used to screw up, they used to tell me what I had screwed up with. But it was, I feel I'm very, very lucky to have people like that who shaped my career. And creative strategy is basically understanding what the solution can be in a creative way for your client or for whatever you're trying to do. Navigating the realities of where that brand exists, and how do you take it forward into making it successful, at least with the people that it's supposed to talk to. So it's like, I always tell this example, like somebody, if a guy is trying to ask a girl out for a date, he has to say it, I want to take you out for a date, instead of saying that the sun is up and the moon is this and all of that rubbish doesn't work, because what do you want to say? You're trying to communicate that I want to go out with you on a date. So just say that instead of making it. I know all the poets will grab my throat, but it's okay to be poetic, but it's also necessary that you say it in a way that the person understands what you're saying.
So communicating, but how do you be creative and ensure that you're communicating?
So now being creative in that is like you're saying that I'd like to drown in your eyes, and therefore let me take you to the beach side. So at least that ends in a date. So
right.
Drowning later is figuring out whether you want to really drown or not. But now I've finished task one of going out on a date with someone.
So you are communicating creatively to reach an outcome.
Yeah.
Don't forget the outcome.
Yeah, never, because original task is that. So how means you can't be running around bush for that. If your brand needs, or if whatever your task is, you have to address that first. All the others are peripherals, what you add on to.
What's a good ad?
What communicates the best, what the brand wants to say to the consumer, so that the consumer actually has, today they'll not jump at it, but they'll keep it in their consciousness, so that sometime later when they see that brand in the market, they'll say, yeah, let me check it out.
In this process, do you humanize a brand? Do you make it relatable? Do you make it accessible? What is the lens that you take working on a brand?
It depends on the brand as well.
With any example, if you want to.
Nike, after point selling shoes, they decided that it was very important to set people on a path of where they're not selling anything, but make them believe in the brand's vision, which is making everyone fit. So they said that if you wear a Nike, if you subscribe to Nike, you'll be fit because Nike is about running. So then they stopped selling shoes. They are only selling a concept. But there are other brands, let's say for example a Bajaj scooter. At that time they said Hamara Bajaj, which meant that it was the most obvious choice. The whole nation subscribed to it, so why wouldn't you? So there was a
collective emotion.
Like there is MDH masala. That thing is so stupid. It sticks in your head. You can never forget it. Or a Lijjat Papa, that rabbit saying Karram Khurram. You didn't even know what it meant, but you remember it.
What's the weirdest campaign or ad that you have worked in, which you said, what have I done, but it worked?
I've never worked on a campaign which had a response where I said that, oh, what did I do? But we've had campaigns where we said, how the hell did it happen? And that was about this Times of India, Lead India campaign. So when we were working on it, we were so involved in the everyday doing of things because it was very interesting as a concept. And the whole idea was to change the nation because now they were going to be leaders who were going to come from the regular people and help build this nation. That concept itself only was so amazing that we used to make an ad a day almost. So what happened was when we were compiling it to send it for all the award functions is when we realized that we had over 100 ads.
Wow.
And we didn't even realize. And we were saying that we did all of this.
It won the Grand Prix at Canne thrice, if I'm not wrong.
No, twice. One Grand Prix and one titanium integrated line, and then it won in Goa Fest and it also won in Ad Fest. But the amazing thing was when we saw the body of work, we never thought we'd done it. So whoever was working on it, all of us kept saying that, did we do all of this? And so obviously yes, because that was the body of work we had, and it was one of the most sort of successful things for us as well, because it was very also that inner compass, moved to the right place, and everything was sort of, it just fell in place, and so all of us were very clued on. Everyone who worked on the account that time was a little activist inside, and so it sort of tuned all of us into the same page.
Are you saying being aligned with your personal
Yeah,
purpose?
so the key guys who were working on it, we're all activists in some way or the other. When this came up, it was a natural thing for us to lean on. When you see something and you say, yeah, that's my thing. It all the compasses suddenly came to north for all of us, and then we just started working. It was effortless.
How do you explain this to the young ones or new ones? This sense of purpose or vision of alignment, because creative job can also be looked as just a job.
Yeah, I don't know what the youth today gets excited by, because there's too much of information for everyone. But for us, there was not that.
Less noise.
Yeah, there was very less noise. And also another thing was, for us, we came from a time where I think all very earnest people who were working, or maybe we all came together at the same time. But for us, it worked in a very different way, where you came to work at 9:30, however late you left work the previous night, or whatever the thing would be, you would be in office on time. You would finish your work and then leave.
So accountability and discipline.
There was nobody put that rule.
How do you quantify that?
There's no,
for today's
that's the way
time?
we are. We were built like that. There was nobody taught us. We never went to any college which teaches you accountability. You just stand up for life, and you're there. You're present to what is required, and that's what I think. A lot of these kids today, they find themselves not understanding what it means to. Everything has a, like, they always look for, there's too much of pressure, or they're looking for something to escape your responsibility you can't run away from.
Is there any solution to that?
I don't think there is a solution, but I think it's a phase. It'll probably pass. I don't know how long it'll take, but I was having the other day, I actually had gone for to meet some people, and a very interesting conversation. So this guy was a sports management. He runs an institute, and so he was talking about how kids today they're okay if they don't win. And
It's okay attitude, yeah.
but you're playing a sport. It's not okay if you don't win. You have to win. Where is the competitiveness? So parents are the reason for kids to be like that, because like when you see kids coming back home, they've run a race and they've not come first or second or third. I'm not saying you have to be flogging your kid, but you have to instill that feeling of competitiveness. That missing
Of achievement.
of some amount of achievement. You don't have to be first all the time, but you have to, there should be a sense of achievement for that child, or a sense of being able to complete something and be happy, so that you can do better next time. But the way the parents create a bubble around them, it doesn't work. But if you look at any small town kid, they don't have that bubble. When they come and they're competing with the rest of these, they're doing damn well than these cushioned little kids. How does it work? After a point, I think that's going to be beating them up. And
Because when the reality comes knocking on their doors, when you go out in the real world, you get employed, or when you have to actually prove yourself of who you are or what you stand for, is it the lack of self-worth? Is it the lack of self-awareness, self-confidence, something at a fundamental level?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm guessing that they are seeking a work-life balance, which for us, till we were in our late 30s, we didn't even think of it, because for us it was to be able to set a benchmark, or set yourself at some standard where you are settled in your job, and from there it takes you in whichever direction. So you have to put that many hours in, you have to put that many grind that many wheels to be able to come to a point where you put it on auto and then it runs. You can't put it on auto on the first job that you do. It'll never work.
It's also the macroeconomic factors. I mean, how things have changed. My parents would have struggled to find their base, and they would have wanted to ensure that the next generation is more comfortable. But comfort should not become convenience, should not become a lack of identity at my level, so that I make my own path. So I think it's the comfort versus convenience which is...
Oh, comfort is, everybody seeks their comfort. There's no, like, even a person who doesn't have much to fall back on is also looking at comfort. But at the back of their mind, they know that if they are going to be extremely comfortable, then it's never going to be, they're not going to be able to achieve their bare minimum. It's an equation which means you obviously have to follow. But I can't be sitting on my ass and then expecting the whole world coming to me. It can't happen. You have to get out, get on the street and get things done, then only it will happen to you. But very few kids I see today who have that drive to do things. And with this social media thing, like, the people are doing random stuff. I don't even want to get there. But content creation is not content really. It's
In all this noise around us in the world, how can then one, and especially the young ones who are digital natives, cultivate the ability to think, to be creative?
one is you want to do it first. If you want to do it, then you will sit with a paper and pen somewhere. Because when you put pen to paper, your hand is not doing something. It's waiting for you to think of something, then it processes that and puts it on paper. But that's a rigor that you learn. Nobody does it. Absolutely nobody does it today, because the kids they haven't had the understanding that your mind has to process and your hand has to put it on paper. And the time difference that between that is where the ideas come flowing out. So if you don't do that, sitting in front of a screen is not going to ever allow you to come up with stuff.
Gap is full of ideas. That's
Yeah.
what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
How do you become comfortable with that gap or that pause? Because like you said, if somebody's staring into the screen, and even a pencil versus your digital pens.
Well, I'm not, I love technology. Digital pen is great, but digital pen is not writing on its own. Your mind is processing a thought for it to tell the hand, to tell the pen to do something. And that time gap is what is actually, when it's coming out on paper or when coming out on the screen, is the time that you're thinking.
Have you seen a difference of what output comes when you're giving yourself the time versus what output comes?
Of course, yes. I walked in from the analog world, where everything was by hand. And then we first saw the computers. But when we first saw the computers, we still had to do the layout on paper and then get to the computer. Because sitting in front, there are 1,000 fonts that you can use. Which one is the right one? If you haven't thought about it, you'll never get it. So maybe the font that you're using is not the right font, because there is a tone of voice, there's a way the words speak to someone visually. If you haven't thought about it, it's never going to come.
How do you think about that? Is it a preparation? Is it knowing? Is it waiting for it to come to you? Is there any process?
No, there is a little bit of science which, when you study art, is told to you or you learn that, or you can even now learn it online, which basically is certain things are said in a certain way. So if you use a bold font, it's assertive. If you use a serif font, it's a much more softer way of saying the same thing. So we used to do that as an exercise in college, and then the same sentence you do it in different fonts, and then you understand when you see it from far what the tone of voice is. And today nobody understands that. Canva is not telling you this.
You have won awards for typography, and your typography is so unique because a lot of times people think a clean and neat design is how it should be. But your designs sometimes also bring out the chaos of reality, and the way you write is very, how do I put it, very real. What is your tone of voice? What is your typography?
Mine again depends on what I'm talking about. If I, like there's one thing that I'd done in the Ideator which I had designed, which a lot of people told me they'll really love.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was about Swaraj, India and the Swaraj movement. And because there was so much angst in that, I had to put that angst in the typo. So when you look at it, you can't read it in the first go. Even though you put a lot of effort, it takes a little more effort to understand what's written. But that is what Swaraj movement was. You didn't understand the beginning of what was happening. So if you don't get the emotion out, how will you tell people what does that? If you're trying to communicate that, it has to also visually show you that. So earlier for me it was very strange. I'll tell you another story. So I used to, like I was telling you earlier, 52 layouts for one layout which I did, which won an award, but I had 52 versions of it. My boss came into my room and said, "What are you doing?" I said, and all the printouts are there on the table and on the floor and everywhere. I stuck it up on the walls and I'm looking at all of that and I'm saying I'm not happy. So he walks in and says that, "Dude, this is the one." So I said, "No, this is not the one. That was the first one which I made." So he's telling me, "For me that is okay." So I said, "I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for me." And for me, I had to be absolutely fine with what I was doing. So it took me 52 times to come to that. Then recently, about a year ago, I was reading this book on Wabi Sabi. And I realized that Ikigai, Wabi Sabi, Kaizen. Yeah. As I was reading, and then I realized that there's so much more than actually looking out for perfection. But let's say we cancel the perfection out. But you still have to be happy with what you're putting out.
people want to hide behind the false pursuit of perfection and leave the satisfaction also. Don't go for perfection, but at least have the pleasure of being satisfied.
The process to arrive at that is the satisfaction. And even today, when I'm doing my work and if I'm designing something, it's not the first version that goes out ever. It'll never go out. Very rarely I'll go back to my earlier design and say that, okay, this is the one I like, but it takes me a lot of work to either through scribbles or anyways I start with scribbles, and my scribbles then get converted into a final artwork. But it is a process of, see, when you're drawing is also when you're realizing that what you thought may not be the right thing, because visually it doesn't really look, in your head it may be looking really great, but when you put it on paper it doesn't. Then when you're adding colors, also realize that, okay, this color is not the really great one to go with this form. So it keeps shifting.
And being comfortable with this shift, because a lot of times you can become very anxious that, oh, what I thought is not working, what do I do now? So being fluid
I'm too
in
old
this.
for that. I finished doing that long ago. So
what would you say to the young ones, how to cultivate that?
When I was young, I knew that since college I wanted to, whatever my work was, I used to really work very hard, and then I would have explored as many options that I had in my head, which was a good journey to have completed. So I just extended. When I came into work, my bosses also used to encourage that, and then it then became a way of looking at things. And it's also, if you look at life, it's not like any relationship, you need to work. Any thing that you do, you'll have to. So even when you're cooking, it's not the first time that you cook, it's the best.
Yeah.
Because when you're tasting it, you realize that there's too much jeera in it, or there's too much of something else in it. And you realize that maybe the next time I'll change the way I did it. Maybe it should not go in earlier, maybe it go later. So those things, it's an iterative thing.
Such a complex thing you explained so beautifully and simply. It just becomes a way you see things. So which means you're saying the more you do anything, iterative process, your rationale and intuition comes together.
It will. And it's a learning process. So it's like you did it, and next time you can't say, I had done 100, now I'll do only 90. No. You go through a journey, maybe it'll be 90, but you'll still get it after a point when you understand that, okay, now what I had thought and what I need to talk about has come through correctly.
It happens in writing also, because when you start seeing the sentence, every word and every phrase, when you keep thinking about it, it changes. Even if changing a word can change the entire feeling and emotion, but the key here, what you're saying is you enjoy that process. That 100 or 90 iterations is not a load, it actually is a process which you enjoy.
Yeah, there are two things that I do. One is, if you sometimes you see on my social media handle is, I've written something.
Yeah.
I'm not rewriting it. Whatever's in my head I write, or whatever's in my heart I write it out. And that is the purest form. It may not be the right, correct thing, or it may not be all there as a thought, but it's how I am. Or it's a reflection of what I was thinking at that time. And then there's another set of writing which I also put up, which is thought through, and every word is figured out, and maybe it's gone through a few iterations, and I put that out. And that's a more structured way of looking at. But I like the earlier one because it's very clean, it's very pure. It's not put through any filter, it's not got any thing. Sometimes it's rubbish, but maybe funny or whatever, but it's there. And I think that as a exercise, people should do that, because it makes you understand how you're thinking, and then when you're actually getting to do something structured, you begin with that and then you keep cleaning. So your thoughts totally out on the paper.
A lot of times people do tend to get stuck in the structure or technique or the theory of things, of this is how it should be and these are the 3 things you need to keep in mind. Then the creativity stops. So how do you balance the structure and the techniques with the creative flow?
This is also thanks to my boss. So whenever at Channel B, first thing he told me was, whatever you know in advertising, delete it. So I was just looking at his face and saying, what is this rubbish he's saying? And so he looked at me and said, Ki, you will not understand it right now, but do it. So I said, okay. Every time I'd go back to my advertising sensibilities, and then I'd say, "Nahi, not channel B, not channel B, not channel B," and I would keep doing that. And then I realized that I have to, whatever rules I had to break it. And then it became so much more enjoyable and more.
And you're saying that you can actually, at any point of your career, you can pivot your thinking or perspective. You can shift your perspective if you consciously make an effort.
Of course.
How?
You have to, because there is no other option. Channel B was an irreverent place. It was a crazy place, madness, like every
Creative anarchy, I remember seeing in your profile.
It was one of the best times I had, because every person in that building was brilliant. Everyone was brilliant, and not in work, in life, in the way they would think, in the way they would look at opportunities. And it was amazing to see how people would think outside the box all the time. So when I was there, I was probably the sore thumb, because I was like so lost. And fortunately, there's too much of Kida in me which just needed an outlet. So it just came out, and then I really loved that experience of mine.
Tell us something which comes to your mind, one of the experiences there.
There was an idea which was presented to the bosses, and they said, okay, go make the film. So the budget, 2,500. So
2,500.
2,500. So 2,500, you bought it, 2,500 means rickshaw ka bhada hi utna ho jayega. So now that's a budget. You can't.
It's not even a shoestring budget.
Like you can't negotiate also. You'll say 500 rupees. 0, 2,500. That's the budget. Now what do you do? What do you do? You have to do it. That thing was done. And if you look at it, you will not know that it was done at 2,500.
What worked there? How did you do it?
You had to grab everything that you could. Whether it was straw, whether it was air, whatever you could grab, you grabbed. And you had to get it done.
Does creativity thrive in constraints?
It is a brilliant place for creativity, because that's how it encourages people to think outside. When you don't have, your back is to the wall, what are you going to do? You have to do that. You have to find a way around it. And
it sounds like an interesting exercise. You know, people should give themselves the challenge of creating a short film in half of the X amount which usually it takes.
No, but advertising is full of that only. So, like everybody thinks, now that nobody thinks of anything of advertising, but earlier days when advertising was really in its boom, and everybody used to think it's glamorous. It was far from glamour, because when you were working till 2 in the night, there was no glamour in any room that you were working in. So it was really hard work, and the thing was to be able to figure out how to get things done.
Any example?
So I was launching Taj Mahal tea, and that time I used to work in Bangalore HT, and I came to Bombay, and we actually put a Taj Mahal up, 3D. And so I'm looking at that, and I'm saying that it'll not going to be okay on when we shoot it. So the guy who made it is arguing with me. He's saying, "ये तो perspective के हिसाब से बराबर है." I said, "नहीं हो सकता है," because I used to shoot when I was in, like, since I was a kid, so I knew perspective, and I knew certain angle, lens. There's a little bit of distortion. So I kept telling him, I want the things outwards. The minaret should be, like, when you look at it, it should look odd, but when I'm shooting, it will be correct.
Right.
And he refused. And I kept fighting with him till I actually had to tell somebody to get me a camera to shoot a picture. Those days we didn't have any
digital.
There was no digital, there was no Polaroid. Polaroid was damn expensive. So every time you took a Polaroid, you had to think 10 times.
Wow.
So I said, Polaroid I want, because I want to show this idiot what the truth is. And I did that. And when I shot it, the damn thing looked like this. So I told him, Dekh bhai, now to correct it, a maths failure is explaining maths to this guy, कितना angle में घुमाएगा तो उसको सीधा दिखेगा. So I did all of that. It worked out brilliantly. And can't remember the photographer's name, and he was surprised when he walked into the set. He's looking and saying, something is odd. I said, nothing. everything is correct. Shoot. So he put his lens and got it right. He said, fantastic, dude, I want to work with you. And I did a lot of work with him after that. But it was great fun because if you know your basics, you can figure out the rest of the stuff.
It's a problem-solving attitude, actually finding solution attitude, not problem-solving.
Yeah, there's no problem. You have to see, somebody's entrusted their work with you. There's a huge brand putting in a lot of work, a lot of money to get something out to the public. There's a responsibility you're carrying. It's not been given to you. You have that responsibility.
It's not an entitlement.
Yeah. So when you're standing there, I can't keep another day for the studio and all of that because it's a cost. And it's not going out of my pocket. But I know that my job is to make sure it happens in that time. So what am I going to do? I can't wait for somebody else to come and tell me what the direction is. I'll find it. And we found it. And that's how all through my life I've been only finding solutions.
I also remember you saying one of your strengths is to find solution to anything, any real world problem through communication.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I'm not a people's person. But I had to... What excited me was when I was working through the senior part of my life, when I was in a senior position, is that a lot was expected from the agency by the client because they believed that you came with a lot of expertise to be able to solve something that they needed. And when I was a kid, I used to see my bosses walk into the room and the client standing up. That kind of respect that the agency got, it had eroded. Clients used to treat you badly and things. So for me, it was a big thing. Like, I'm not somebody's floozy. I'm here to do work for you. I'm here to help you. You can't treat me like that. So for me, it was an internal battle as well as an external one.
Right.
And I had to fight it by doing things that were good for the client. So what I started doing was I used to sit with my clients and then I used to just talk to them about what spaces they were stuck and I didn't know what I could help, how I could help them. And I would just sit and chat with them and that gave me more ways of coming back. When I used to come back, I used to think, how can I help him? There's some HR issue, somebody's got a sales problem. So I would sit with the salesperson and sales head and ask him what the issues were. And then I realized that at the end of the day, they all want to pitch their thing correctly. So when you're trying to pitch something correctly, it's back to your communication. So if I'm back to communication, that's where I thrive. So now I just have to use my understanding, take a little bit of learnings from what people are telling me, and then understand where the consumer is sitting. So if I figured out all these things, join the dots, and I'm done.
Tell us about any of the exciting or interesting or weird experience.
Those days were very beginning days of technology and phones and all of that, and WhatsApp had just come in. So for one of my rural clients, the sales head had issues because he was not able to understand that they were putting a lot of money into the market and doing a lot of field work and stuff like that, but they were not getting the results because somebody else was selling their seed and things like that. So he said, "Arey, main mehnat kar raha hu, mera paisa dal raha hu, and I'm putting up these camps and stuff like that, but people are buying other brands." So I said, "Now this is a damn difficult one to solve. I don't even know what makes them tick." And we're talking about farmers and stuff like that. So I spent about 15 or 16 days with the farmers, Maharashtra and Gujarat, and then later. In one of those conversations with the thing, I realized that they discuss a lot of their problems internally. So I asked the local representative that, what are you doing to understand what they're doing? Saying, कभी कभी वो लोग आके बताते हैं वो अच्छा. They उनका एक WhatsApp group है. So I said, okay, how do I access that? He said, I'm on that. So I came back and I spoke to the sales and I said, every one of your guys on WhatsApp groups? He said, yeah. So I said, okay, done. So I just simply said that be quiet, don't do anything, listen to what they're saying. Only just listen to what problems they're talking about and then go with a solution to their problem. And they did that after 6 months. It was a hit. That
Imagine.
sales guy had become my friend. So whenever I'd go to their office, he would say, "Chai bina piye mat jana." So I said,
Solving a sales problem by just listening.
yeah.
How simplistic it sounds, but
Yeah, but it was great because it just needed that joining that dot, and it just worked like magic.
brilliant. While you have solved big business problems throughout your career, you've worked in Saatchi and Saatchi, Channel you talked about, JWT, and then on your own, solving multiple businesses and brands. You've launched big brands in India. At the same time, you also illustrate. At the same time, you also talk about complex thought with innocence. Talk to us about Anony and Moose, the characters that you have created, and then we'll also go to Aristotle, the book you illustrated.
Since I was a kid, I used to copy things, and first thing was Fido Dido. I used to copy exactly and I used to make a lot of greeting cards. So all my friends still have it. They keep sending me pictures of what I made in school and college and all of that. Then Garfield, and then Calvin, and a whole bunch of those. And my dad used to always tell me, "What is this? Why do you have to create somebody else's characters? Why can't you make your own?" I used to look at my dad कि अरे इतना दिमाग में इतना ही हो सकता है उससे ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. So I would keep that in my head, and he used to keep telling me that always find your own voice, always find your own voice. Like a monkey on my shoulder, it used to be the back of my head. So much later, one day I had to make a card for someone, and I copied something and I sent it out. My wife said, "Again, you're copying." So I looked at her, and my dad also stood next to her like an apparition. So I said, "दो जन अभी कौवा के जैसे बात करें." So then I decided, okay, let me look. What can I do? So I have about 16 or 17 characters I had worked on while I was trying to figure out. And one day in some meeting, I was sitting and I was very bored because it's a boring bloody meeting. It went on for very long. I'm sitting in some boardroom, dimly lit, and then some 40 slides, after 40 slides going on, and the same stale air, and that platters of biscuits and more biscuits. I'm saying, what the hell? And I was doodling. And I just quickly drew out one boy and a dog. I don't know why. And I left it. When I came back home and I was going through all my notes and everything, and I looked at this boy and his dog, and I said, "This looks interesting." So I started working on it. And finally, when I did a few things, I used to cut it out, put it on my table and all that. My wife said, "This looks deadly. What are you naming it?" So I said, "Oh God, I barely figured out what it could look like. Now I had to name it also."
They just exist.
Yeah, so it went on for a while. Then one of my ex-bosses, Shanta, he just said, "Why don't you call it Anonymous?" So I said, "Anony and Mous." So I said, "That sounds really good." And it also sit very well with me because everything I did, obviously I wanted fame, and all of that does come to you. But as a person, inherently, I always wanted to stay back, not be.
You had to be anonymous.
Yeah, and this anonymous fit with my sense of being and feeling what is right and what it should be. So Anonymous happened, and then I worked on it, and it came to life. And then I realized that Anonymous can also talk about what I have learned in life as small lessons, or whatever you call it, the small little life truths. So I could use those two characters to say it. So I've written out the whole set. So I still need to add some more. As soon as that is done, then I think I'll also publish it.
How did you go about giving them their characteristics?
I've been always a storyteller from the beginning, and for me it was, I guess, naturally came to me like that. So earlier I used to write stories when I was a kid, and I had a lot of my school books. The back of it would be some kind of story with an illustration and things like that. I think that was a gift that I have.
Is there any difference in the way you look at a human character versus a non-living character versus an animal character?
No, I think everything speaks. And I actually can read bubbles on people's heads. I'm not very good with people, but I can read what
So you're
they.
walking and there is a CGI happening
Yeah.
live.
So I thought about that as well. But I thought I'd make a cartoon series. I mean, an animated series. It's too much work. I don't want to do so much work. So static ones are still good.
And what about Aristotle?
So Shanta actually had written Aristotle, and he said, "I've done some crazy stuff. Do you want to take a look at it?" So because long ago when we were working together, he had written a story as a New Year greeting, and so I had illustrated that. And it was a purple elephant and a random turtle. So that was the characters that he had in the note that he had written. So we used to print it out on a laser printer. I used to color it, and he post it to his friends and whoever he was sending it to. And it worked out very well. So I think that's the reason why he called me, and he said that there's this character called Aristotle. So I said, oh, it's fabulous. I could already think of what all is happening. So he sent it to me, and I said that this is random.
Yeah.
So who's going to understand this rubbish? So he said, it's a little high. I said, but we're going to send it to everyone. No? So it can't be that high that, हम लोग बाबा थोड़ा ना यार. So his moniker is Shanta Baba. So I said, you can be, but what you're saying should people should be able to understand. So then he sent me another draft, which was really nice. So I said, okay, give me some time, I'll figure out what characters. So first thing when I read it, I closed my eyes and I saw Ugwe. And I said that the easiest thing to do is to copy. Then my dad will come and slap me. So I said, oh God, this is like, what am I going to do? So I said, okay. So if you see Aristotle is a turtle who is supposed to have flippers, but he's got fingers. So Shanta asked me, why does he have fingers? So I said, how will he point? So,
I will be a Baba if you.
So we used to have these random discussions. So I said, just let's stay with the fingers. So then we had a few iterations, and I decided to keep the things detached. So there's no whole body.
Yeah.
The head is separate, the body is separate, and that also allows for flexibility in what it needs to explain to people, and that nothing is complete. Because even what is written there is not complete.
It matters.
Because what you read and what I read, there is a difference in the same sentence.
Right.
So how can it be complete? Because for you there's a different completion, for me there's a different completion.
Right.
So there's a lot of these smaller cues which I had put into it. It was good fun.
It's intelligent creativity. You're being humble right now.
No, just...
I mean, your work has gone on Rolling Stone's cover.
Yeah, that was something. I'm extremely proud of that, because when I was introduced to Rolling Stones, it was my first job, and before that I didn't know about Rolling Stones. I knew about Rolling Stones, but I had never seen a copy. The good thing about agencies were you could access libraries where there were things where our college library was very dated, and so when you first came into an advertising agency, the culture shift is huge, because what you learn in college and what you come and learn in an agency is absolutely. Then you're wondering, why the hell did I go to college? So anyway, so I saw the Rolling Stone, and I would say this is brilliant design. Means this is what I want to do. What am I doing? What did I learn for 4 years? Yeah? So then I used to say, okay, I'm just going to blatantly copy. So I used to go through the Rolling Stone magazine, and I used to copy their layout. Adapt it, because with magazine layout you can't make an ad of, so you have to do a little bit of your own addition and shifting around things. But that was my inspiration, and at some point in my head I used to think that it'd be wonderful to be a part of Rolling Stone, and I just left it, put it in the universe and let it go. And then one day the editor of Rolling Stone India, he said, would you want to design a cover? It's a competition. So I said, of course, I'll do it every day. So for free. So he said, okay, then this is the theme, make one. And then began my struggle. I'm saying, oh my God, I said yes to something and I don't know where to begin. It's like a massive thing, and I'm like, in my head, I'm saying, I'm not even ready for this. What am I going to do? And like I'm struggling and struggling and struggling. My wife is telling me, don't do regular stuff. I'm saying that I'm as it is struggling, and you're adding more pressure onto this. So she kept saying, do what you do. So I said, okay. Obviously, I'm going to do what I do, but I was trying to figure out what. And that's my rigor. I have pads of papers and I keep scribbling and trying to figure out what. So I kept thinking, and then one day it just started flowing. And then half my page was done in a rough scribble. I said, no, why am I wasting time? I just got my large sheet out and I started making the final. I didn't know how it was going to look. So almost 3/4 down, I said, shit, I should have put the happy birthday Rolling Stone into it. And so now 3/4 is done. What am I going to do? So in the 1/4, I'm like really navigating, and I put that. So you can't see it really. You see it first time, and if you look at it closely is when it reveals. There's a happy birthday Rolling Stone. And then I did 5 more after that. So I was so thrilled.
You said, and then it just started flowing. How do you explain this process? Because a lot of times it has happened with me also, where I'm struggling with some character or some story and suddenly it comes to you and then it flows. How do you explain that to the uninitiated?
That's the years of rigor that you put in. So if you didn't have that rigor, you'll never be sitting and flowing. Because that's what it needs.
So you need to have a strong base of hard work and then it becomes fluid.
Yeah.
Where does imagination come in all this? And I'm asking why, because a lot of times people find the constraints of their reality making it difficult to imagine and go into a dimension.
Constraints are where you are the most creative, right? Because there is no way to fly, because you are bound by that 4 walls of whatever you're going through. And that is your imaginary flight. And if you don't take that, then you'll always be stuck in a little jail called life.
And if something which you have never experienced or you have never seen anybody experiencing around you?
So,
for example, you're writing a story. Let's talk about Matsyakaand. You might have some characters there which may not be relatable to you in real life. What shifts there?
There are certain things that you gather on your way. So one is understanding of how human emotions work, figuring out what triggers people have, what people don't have, how you're not, everything cannot be 100%. At least 50% of, if you get there, then you can polish it to whatever you want it to. So don't be fearful of what's going to happen. Just put it all there. It took me 7 years to write that, and I was holding on to it for God knows how long. And that story was actually based on a real story which my uncle had told me when I was a little kid. So some 40 years it was brewing inside me. So finally when it came out, it did.
What, 170 million views?
Yeah.
And that was the first story that you wrote?
I've written other stories which didn't become
a screen.
Yeah, but yeah, this is the first thing. Yeah.
What's the difference in copywriting and writing long format?
Copywriting, you're writing to a brief. There is something that you're selling. Yeah, they're selling an emotion, selling a purchase queue or whatever. There's something you're trying to talk to a certain set of audience. Writing in long format is talking to a larger audience, telling them a story which will take them to another world. For a short while, they'll forget where they are. They'll probably get into the role of, if you're good enough, you'll be able to put the story in such a way that they identify with one or other characters, or they identify with all the characters at some point. Like when I first saw Dil Chahta Hai, I identified with all the characters. And I've seen it, I don't know how many, 40 times or something I've seen that film. And every time looks that, oh God, I was like this.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of that writing. You get people to relate very well to what that. So I actually, there's one scene where Saif is sitting on a pillow and he's saying, dude, I was sitting on top of a truck thing. And I have done that, and I have felt exactly like that. And you're saying that, dude, where the hell did he find this? Because that was me. So there's so many, at so many levels you connect with people, and that's the good thing of long format. You can get people enveloped into something that is not real.
What makes a good writer?
Somebody who can communicate with everyone, or a large, everyone in the sense that not 100%, but most people can relate to what you're saying.
There's a school of thought which says if you have life experiences, diverse, varied life experiences, you will have richer thoughts, richer emotions, and hence you will be a good artist. I will not say better because let's not compare. Is there any alternate to that? If you don't have varied life experiences, because you can't change what your past was.
Yeah.
How
you
do
have
you
to
become
be an interesting person. If you want to be in communication, if you are a dull guy, there's no chance.
What's interesting?
You have different experiences. Like I used to always travel by unreserved. For my entire, up to my college days, I used to travel in an unreserved compartment to my uncle's house. Because I used to go there on holiday every summer, and my parents would give me money, say that book your ticket, book your. But I would sit in that unreserved compartment, and I'd sit in the corner because it gave me a view of the passage, and I could look at people and keep drawing.
Observe.
And the amount of love I've got in those train journeys, I will never forget. People have opened their luggages, given me paper, given me food, given me, told me stories, they've given me books, they've given me whatever they've had. And I'm not asked. And I'm just sitting there and just drawing on my pad.
This is so interesting because as an artist, you are going within you. I will not call you introvert, but at the same time, you're feeling at one with the larger ecosystem or universe. Does it sound contradictory, or is that's how it is, right?
It is to be, no?
So you want your peace and quiet, but you also feel connected.
Yeah, everybody is like, if you look at people, everyone is an island. There is no one. If people say that no, I'm not an island, not true. You are, when you are alone, you are with yourself, and a lot of people are with themselves even when they are in public. So if somebody says that no, I'm a people, yeah, you're a people person, but you're essentially you're a lonely person when you're with yourself.
Right.
You cannot be with everyone. So understanding that, being able to connect with people is. I never did that because for me it was, my thing was a different purpose. I wanted to capture people's figures. I was not doing some philosophy class and saying, oh God, now I'm going to get connected to nothing of that. Very simply, I wanted to draw people. I wanted to understand how people sit, how people stand, what are they doing. Different figures. Best time, best place to catch.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I used to sit after dinner, I would take my sketch pad, go to the station for 2 hours and do 1,000 sketches every night.
Wow.
Because that's where do you get people who are not moving? Where else can I get them? At the station or a bus stop. That's where generally a long distance bus stop you'd get people, and the other place is a station.
Or airport right now.
Or an airport. But station is where they allow you to even sleep.
Right.
Wait for the next day, next early morning or whatever. So they generally people sleeping. So we used to, a few friends of mine, we would sit in some corner and then we would go and have chai and then come back and sit some other corner. We'd do that. And 1,000 sketches was my benchmark.
In a night?
Every night.
Wow.
I did that for 4 years. There was one time that I could do one figure in 2 seconds.
In 2 seconds?
Like if you saw it, it wouldn't be a full drawing, but it would be his outline. You would understand what his pose was.
Can we try one?
I can, but I haven't sketched like that for a long time.
It's okay.
But what I'm generally trying to say is that you have to put that rigor. Nobody put this sword on my head. Neither did it put on any of my other friends.
It was self-motivation.
It was, yeah, you want to do well, you want to be better at something, you have to put that effort.
Yeah. You've worked across different brands, country tourism to products to services, cafes, and then you have developed characters, then you've developed illustrations, huge range of creative ideas. Is there any commonality in how you have managed to do everything? Solve social problems also with that, I might add.
Yeah, but there's nothing the common thread. There's nothing common in the stuff that we do, but advertising actually teaches you to work to a brief. So if you're working for a PSU, you understand what the PSU needs, who it's talking to, how it thing, and versus if you're working for a FMCG or a fashion brand or whatever, the needs are the same. Essentially, you're generally trying to talk about why people should buy them. So the task is initially, if you cut down everything, it's a single task. Motivations for filling one fuel versus another, or buying one brand versus another, or drinking one brand versus another, or following some social message versus another, is the motivation that you have towards something. And then the story that's been built around that to bring up that motivation is what triggers people differently. So that's a rigor that we have to go through.
That's the commonality between all your advertising work.
Yeah.
But your creativity has also panned across different mediums like writing or developing characters or developing non-human characters.
That is my kida, nothing, nobody else's. So, also, I've always been a restless person inside, and wanted to do different things, wanted to learn different things, wanted to create different things. So, for me, being still in one place is not possible. Like, I'll never retire. I can never retire. If I retire, I'll die, or I'll die and then retire. So, there is no way of saying that अभी हो गया सब कुछ, ऐसा नहीं होता है, because every day there's something new. And the interesting thing is that there's so much to life, there's so many new things happening, there's so much more that you can do, figure out, create. It's a wonderful world. Now it's become easier because there's so much of technology that can help you. There's another debate, but I'm not getting into that. But there is this thing within me that I want to learn new things. I want to do new things. So I've been actually part of technology for very long, since school actually. So it's just the way I am.
How do you use technology to develop your creativity or support your creativity?
For me, then that's the one is I get more information now. Earlier I had to read, now I have to see. The other thing is still work with my hand. So predominantly my work begins with my hand and then gets translated on technology, but it's much more easier to figure out things now. Like I can create images that I couldn't do. Now Midjourney allows me to do. I can research a lot faster with ChatGPT and Gemini and all of those things, but which I couldn't do. I had to keep reading. Like I actually can give it a prompt to give me papers that I can read, or make a précis of a lot of things, and so it's easier that way. Reduces my time, and the possibility of creating anything is endless now. Like you can do whatever you want. From a photograph, you can actually turn it into a film, or like a moving set of moving images. But the thing is that you have to still figure out the idea, no? You have to still think.
It needs to start with you.
It has to start with you. So you have to work on that art first, that skill of figuring out what you want to say. And that gets translated. I mean, it's easy to make a film today. Yeah? Earlier it was damn difficult. Like you had to, while editing, you had to actually cut, splice film and then stick it together. Those things were so much more complicated than today. Then I remember I used to shoot film, photographs, and when digital came in, there was so much more argument on digital is going to be bad, it's not the right thing. And all of us, we would sit and say that there's the grain. Then one day grain got introduced and I'm saying, what the hell, dude? I can shoot as much as I want now. I don't have to go into the dark room, develop, print, all of that. None of that is required. I can see it on my computer. So it's just become easier. Now my phone has more megapixels than my camera has. So it's interesting how technology is taking it forward. And it's great fun because even when we used to listen to music, so when we were born into vinyl, so we used to listen to vinyl, and then vinyl went away, and then you'd say, "Arey, what is going to come?" And cassettes, everybody said, "Arey, cassette not spool better." Then that got changed to digital, and then everything just you accepted everything.
Yeah.
Nobody complained about sound quality or any other. Probably it just got better even. So you take in as much as you can from whatever is happening and embrace the change and keep working. That's, I think, how you would survive.
What is your voice of artist?
How do I answer that?
What is your voice, inner voice as an artist?
I have multiple voices. I don't know how to answer that.
What are the multiple voices?
Some days I want to say it in just one scribble. Some days I want to say it in multiple words. Some day I want to make something that moves. So there is no one voice.
Who is Debu?
I have no idea. Somebody who's actually very lucky. I think I've been one of the luckiest guys to have found amazing people in my journey and my experiences. And I had written one post on LinkedIn about being a sponge, and I am.
Yeah.
And I think that has helped me learn so much more than what I knew. I was, I think, born with a skida where like, I would want to do interesting things all the time. So I remember this thing that this friend of mine, he's actually a brilliant engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have enough marks to get into a degree course. He got a diploma course. And I could feel his pain, but I knew he was so brilliant that the world would never be able to stop him. And today he's one of the finest, he does railway systems around the world, and he's one of the, means he's an awesome guy. So he was always my fallback. So first time we made a speaker was I had found the Bose ka original speaker ka cross section. We went and sourced things from whatever we could find, and we made one set of speakers for him, one for me. And they were amazing, and it cost us $200.
Wow.
But Bose would have been selling it for some 15,000 or whatever. I'm just trying to give you the gap. $200. Absolutely fantastic speakers. Then Cadbury Bonvita quiz contest used to have those buzzer things. So I used to do a lot of quizzing, and I used to set questions for college quizzes. So I told him we'll have a buzzer system, and he made that buzzer system for me. So first time outside of Bonvita quiz contest, we had it in our
Wow.
and so we used to do all these random things. There was no reason to do all of that.
The thrill of doing something new or
Yeah,
giving yourself a
so-
challenge.
Yeah, so we would only challenge ourselves. Yeah, who else will challenge you if you don't challenge yourself? You'll have other people think, but that is not really a challenge. That's you're trying to outdo somebody else. But if you keep challenging yourself, though, you don't need to outdo anything. You're just bettering yourself.
What do you think, how would you define success for an artist?
I can't define for everyone. I can only define for me. If it just makes me happy, that's my success. I can't. My art is free for everyone to use. So it's not. So a lot of people have used it also. That's not a. It's just about. It makes me extremely happy. I draw every day. I make something. I may not put out everything every day, but I draw every day. I create something.
We have to see, you said, I am still not over the fact that you said you have made 1,000 sketches every day for 4 years and you could do something in 2 seconds. Debu, you have to show us what you see in your head right now.
What's in my head?
Yeah. Or what you're seeing right now, how you're seeing us, the set.
Oh, you want me to draw that? Sure. How will you see it? Are you going to time me? Okay.
No, I'm going to time you.
Take it more than 2 seconds, but this is how it will be.
Wow. Do you want to just hold it up for the camera?
Yep.
10 seconds, but wow.
I haven't sketched for a long time, but this is what we used to do.
This just shows right there the strength in just getting into it and the strength in just challenging yourself and
I don't see any other way. How would I learn more if I didn't challenge myself? So it's just that if you don't find something new to do, you'd be doing the same thing again and again. And for me, I can't do that. I'll be bored out of my skull like this. So
from this, I want to zoom out a bit. Do you see a role of creativity in culture building?
totally,
How?
there are so many things that earlier we used to do, which we've forgotten, which we've lost. There are lots of things that are lost. There are a lot of
Like?
things we are forgetting. And art is not being just a painter or a writer. Art is everything. We are so culturally rich. Half the time we don't even know what we are. And we keep looking westward to try and be like them, but forgetting who we are actually. And those guys are actually looking at us and becoming us, and we are looking at them and turning into idiots. So it's quite a odd conundrum. So there is so much stuff that we do or we have. If we find our way around those, like there's so many things that we could use to cook things. Like there are so many ways of cooking in India. There are so many different ways of doing. People now call it religion, but it was earlier only meditation. So there are so many different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And at different times of the year, people used to do different things because there was a science behind it. And we've lost all those. Or I don't think we've lost, but we negate those ancient knowledge that we had. If you think about it, how it works for us, if you start doing that, or actually in your life, if you bring that alive, a lot of things will change. You'll be able to see that difference in your own life.
So, in a way, you're also saying that different types of art could
Everything can be an art
Right.
if you did it well. If your soul is happy, if it makes you feel good after you've done it. My mom was a fabulous cook. She could eat anything once and replicate it without knowing what it was made out of, what masalas went to it, how it was made. She was gifted, and like it was I'm just saying it, not I'm saying it, but it's difficult for people to believe unless if you've had what she used to cook.
Yeah.
She would eat once and she'd figure out what it was. She was that good, and that was her meditation and that was her art.
Art. How can one unlock the artist within themselves?
Just by doing. Just by doing. So my mom used to do these, in Bengali we call it alpona, which is basically rice powder, water, and it's a design. Geometrical designs without any thread, scale, nothing. It'd be absolutely perfect. And I feel so stupid, I have only one photograph of it. And all her life, while I was carrying a camera, roaming around, I never took pictures of hers.
It's the regularity of life which we don't appreciate,
Yeah.
which becomes the most treasured.
Yeah. My recipes that my mom's cooking, given to me by dad. My dad actually taught my mom how to cook.
Oh.
So, but I never took recipes from her. Because then I was never cooking actually. I just left home and all of that. And so I didn't have any place to cook. So when I started cooking is when I had already lost my mom. So my dad transferred those. But I can never, whatever I make never tastes like how our mom made. Whatever I do, however I try. So it's not to do with if you're an artist. If you can iron your clothes the best way that you can, that's an art. That's also meditation actually.
Are you equating art with meditation?
Everything is meditation. Art is meditation. Is a form of meditation. There are people who make money on that kind of stuff. So, but if you just be with yourself and your pen and your paper, it is meditation.
What is the role of understanding and appreciating philosophy in all this?
It is all connected. These are all Western concepts. But if you, again, like what I was saying earlier, if you pull back into our ancient wisdom, everything was linked. What is philosophy? Is universal truth, right? That doesn't change. Whether you're sitting in Egypt or you're sitting in India or you're sitting in South America, it's all the same. So forever, everyone, all the people who were knowledgeable, elders, that only spoke about this. And today, people are monetizing that for stupid guys who could do this at home easily by just being with themselves. Nothing is about perfection. If you're meditating, what is perfection in meditating?
Right.
You have to just be quiet with yourself. So whether you're opening your eyes and doing something or closing your eyes and trying to go inwards, when you're doing something, the whole act of being able to put it out is meditative enough for you to be able to understand what life is.
Right.
So when I write that thing, where I don't stop, where I'm thinking and I'm not waiting to understand and then write, that is like if all of them are not profound or anything of that sort, but it's an interesting output. When I read some of those, some of it makes sense, one line makes sense, everything doesn't make sense.
Sure.
But it is what is coming out from inside, what I'm feeling at that moment. And that is something that people should actually try. Anything. Stand in front of the gas and boil milk and see it go up and go down, go up and go down. That is a breathing thing that you can
Being
try.
in the present, I mean, when are we in the present is what you're saying. I mean, Japanese have a meditation of drinking tea, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every
So
step.
I was doing that. So when I started reading Kaizen, I started making chai.
I am curious to ask you, Debu, what kind of content do you consume?
Because I am writing, I watch a lot of interesting stories. So different languages. Malayalam cinema is amazing. Polish, then Korean stuff. There's a lot of crazy Korean stuff. Then from Europe, there's Middle East. There's a lot of stuff. Turkey, there's good stuff coming. So now, since there's so much of overdose of all of that, I get enough thing from there. Now I've just discovered this comedy in Marathi, so I'm constantly watching that as well. Hasya Jatra on Sony, and it's brilliantly written, and it's the way humor can be so cool without being obscene is on view there. It's really cool. And since I was a kid, I used to listen to a lot of different music because I'm like, since I wake up, my music is always on. And gradually over time, I understood. Again, my bosses played a part, or my cousins, elder cousins, they played a part. And a lot of other friends of mine, they played a part in introducing me to different kinds of sound. So though I may not understand it, but I sort of like the rhythm and the vibe, and so I listen to different music, different genres, and different languages.
Any favorites?
Many. I actually listen to music in the way that whatever I'm doing, depending on that I listen to music. So if in the morning if I'm reading, then I listen to Sufi. If I'm working, then I'm listening to actual house or techno or things, because that sort of gives you more energy to continue. So different things, like I listen to a lot of Coke Studio when I'm drawing. So there are different times that I have different music for different things. And in the evenings, I listen to a lot of old Bollywood songs. So those ones which they have, actually the lyrics make sense, not some of those which don't even know what they're doing. So from there came my love for movies of different kinds and different genres and different languages. And since I started writing as well for web, I also started watching a lot of similar content. So mine is a detective thriller. So I started watching a lot of detective murder mysteries and things like that, and find out ways of how people connect dots, what are the motivations, how do villains look at things, and why things happen in a certain way, what are the reactions people have. So that's my learning. So I do a lot of that.
Just one last question before we wrap the conversation. By watching the similar zone which you are writing in, how do you stop it from influencing your thoughts or stopping your original ideas or creative ideas?
Because I read as well. So there is the reading is an imaginative process. Watching is mostly visual. So that's a quick thing that you can watch and but more than watching or reading, I'm actually sitting and figuring out how I can overcome my hurdle points that I have in my stories. Because for me to leave loose ends, no, I can't handle it. And I see a lot of these movies and think, why are there so many loose ends? Why? And why is that character? A couple of characters don't even need. Why? What are they doing? So those things I'm learning while I'm watching or while I'm reading. So
Right.
it helps.
Any books you would recommend to our audience?
My favorite book is a book called Alexandria Quartet. I ask a lot of people to read it.
You've told me also about it.
Yeah, I did. Didn't I give you one? Okay,
I'll wait for it.
Yes, it's a book by Lawrence Durrell. It's the first time I read it was in 2000, and I realized this is again my boss had given me this 4 books called Alexandria Quartet. Now it's available in one. I read the first book, and the language was poetic. It was prose, and it's written in such a way that you have to keep reading to understand what the hell is happening. So it took me a long time to read a book. I read very fast, but this took me a really long time because the language is really, really rich. And then I read the second one and I realized that it's the same story in a different point of view. And then the third, and then the fourth, and I'm saying, oh my God, that's the day I realized that the truth has multiple viewpoints, and nothing is universal truth. It's what you,
It's all perspective.
where you are looking at it from your perspective. So it made me, I think, understand people a little better than before. So I think it's a brilliantly written book. Everyone should read that.
Any last message for all the people who are in an artistic journey at whatever stage?
Just keep doing. Just keep doing. Don't wait for somebody to give you a nudge, a push, or tell you. You just have to keep doing. It's for yourself. It's not for anybody else. If you're not doing it for anybody else, if you're doing it for yourself, then just keep doing.
What would the younger version of Debu, the kid who used to doodle and make graphic novels, say to you today?
I think I've come a long way, but I've gone back again to the simplicity that I had earlier. In this journey of so many complex understandings and different experiences of life, I've gone back to how I used to not have so many different thoughts. I used to just stay with what I understood at that
The
time.
childlike state?
Yeah. So there's one drawing of mine which says "Be childlike," and I really, I try and do it as much. My wife complains, but yeah. So.
Thank you so much, Debu, for coming to Voice of Artists. It's a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here as well. And I wish you guys absolute success because this is such a fabulous thing. You're reaching out to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.